Hi, this is Captain Andrew from Sailors Delight Back Bay Fishing of Wildwood, New Jersey. And I'm welcoming you to one of our segments called Fish Stories, where I give everybody a lowdown and entertaining breakdown of my life's experiences in both the fishing and merchant marine world. Now, some of the names and locations have been changed for privacy reasons, but I assure you that everything I'm about to tell you is the truth as I saw it.
This fish story edition is titled Confessions of a Party Boat Mate, Chapter 2. This is my first viewer request since so many mates and patrons of party boats reacted so positively to the first Confessions video. First, I'm going to touch on 4 things that really annoy mates, and then I will touch on 2 things from behind the scenes as a mate that customers rarely see, and then I'll end it out with a story. First thing first is the bane of any fisherman on a party boat, the caster. Anyone who thinks they can overhand cast on a party boat should just resign themselves to a life of ridicule. Yes, you said you wanted to get out away from the other lines. Yes, you did it once without hooking anyone else on the boat. No, your cast was not effective because we are drifting. And no, you did not catch a fish that was way out away from the lines because suddenly your line is crossed with 3 other people. No, I will not retie your line because you pissed off the customer next to you and he cut your line. Standing next to the caster in the line to fishing hell is the person who brings an inappropriate rod to the boat. Your offshore rod with pulley eyes and an electric reel that has 80-pound braid may do quite well for tilefish, but if you're fishing in 40 feet of water for porgies, you're just playing with yourself. This is the same people who bring a 12-foot surf rod on a 4-hour floundering trip. Congratulations, you spent $55 at Walmart for a surf combo. Now leave it on the beach. Oddly, and this will play in at the end of the story here, people who bring comically undersized rods to the boat are almost always people who know what they're doing and will usually bring a real fishing rod or get a rental rod. I imagine there are exceptions to the rule, but it is what it is. When I mean comically undersized rods, think about those pan fishing rods or ice fishing rods. Third, and I want to put this as delicately as I can as to not offend any snowflakes, keep your thumb on the spool. You have been told many times. Now, before someone jumps down my throat and says, oh, well, what if they have a bad thumb or what if they have arthritis? Well, you have 4 other fingers on that hand. I have used other fingers to control backlashes before. If you don't have a thumb, use the nub. No nub? Use your pointer finger. Use your nose. Use your elbow. No one cares. Do what you need to do to control the drop of your line. I would rather watch you use your tongue to release the spool than have to untangle your 8th backlash and listen to you whine that you aren't catching any fish. Which brings us to the 4th point, the whiner. Whenever I encountered a whiner, I just thought about how miserable their family life must be, and it made me feel better. As a mate, and now as a captain, I want both positive and negative criticism. If you have a gripe, let me know, but I do not want to hear you whine because you are seasick, or because you can't set the hook, or if it's too windy, or if you booked on a day with terrible tide, or you hate your wife, or you're on the sunny side of the drift and you're getting sunburn. Yes, you can vent. I want you to vent, but at some point you turn into a sad sack case. And as a mate, I'm going to be reluctant to want to be getting into within ear range of you, mewing. I'm sorry you didn't bring a sweatshirt to a mackerel trip in March. You will learn. Now, from the negative, let's go to the positive. Being a party boat mate and a captain isn't all as glorious and dashing as it seems. It is unlike any other job you will ever have. When people say a bad day fishing is better than a good day at work, I want to find their vehicle and introduce it to a claw hammer. A party boat mate works long hours for so-so pay with the hopes of excellent tips. Now, as a boat owner, I pay my guys very well, but not all mates are so fortunate, and tips are the one thing that keeps most guys in the game. A day for a typical mate during the busy season is usually a 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. gig, assuming they don't pull an Ironman and work 3 trips. As a 16-year-old mate, I was often working from 5 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., often 7 days a week in the busiest times of the season. You arrive way ahead of the customers and you get to leave way after the customers. You get to work almost immediately to make sure the boat is ready for a trip. You get a lunch break, which lasts about 17 seconds between trips. Bathroom breaks are almost always interrupted by customers knocking on the door. Your coffee cup will eventually walk away in the hands of a customer if you are not careful, and for the love of God, please do not leave your pliers unattended. You have to be an ichthyologist, a butcher, a teacher, a protector, a janitor, a waiter, and most surprising of all, a psychologist. Mates will get the privilege of listening to everyone complain about a bad trip, but then you have to sit there silently as they smile and walk away from a good trip. With all that in mind, just as a teaser is what it is to be a mate, for some reason, so many of us willingly, if not eagerly, get up every day and do it because it's what we want to do and we love it. Another thing that people that aren't mates don't realize behind the scenes is the camaraderie that mates have. When you have a good crew, you have the go-to group of friends, drinking buddies, guys who will help you roof your shed, people who can give you a ride in a pinch, the best men at your wedding, a guy who will put fish in your enemies' mailboxes, victims of your pranks, alibis, and guys who will go to the end of the earth for you because it would still be easier than being a mate. You do get bad apples in the bunch, but they do not last. The shortest trip I ever saw was one trip. This happens multiple times. You don't get to brag about being a fisherman and God's gift to the job if you panic when a weak fish trip accidentally finds a school of 50-pound drumfish. Which brings me to the final point. I promised you guys a story. So, this is a fish story after all. The Jersey Cape boasts monsters in shallow water, a lot of them. Recently, cobia have returned to our inshore waters, as New Jersey is part of their historical range before they were overfished, but our original giants slowly are rebounding in population, and by giants I mean sand tiger sharks and black drum. Now, I earlier mentioned comically overpowered fishing rods. Well, the story takes place back in 2010. I was still mating on what is now the defunct Royal Flush in Wildwood. We had a regular customer, his name was Artie. And Artie, if you are listening, please don't be a stranger. I would love to fish with you again. Artie looked like and was built like a short-haired version of John Redcorn from King of the Hill. He would always bring this fishing rod that I am pretty sure was designed to yank grouper off of reefs. The thing was a beast. It had a level wind, it had the screws underneath the reel for the reel seat, it had a depth counter, pulley eyes, and it was about the circumference of a broomstick. And he would use this thing for a 4-hour flounder fishing trip. And it could have easily strong-armed a 10-pound tog out of a rock pile without bending. So, Artie was fishing and we were drifting a popular formation off of Wildwood called the Stain, and fishing was slow. That is until we just hear this godforsaken bellow coming from Artie, and his rod is shaped like the St. Louis Arch. You knew instantly he wasn't snagged on the bottom because snags don't swim towards the bow. This fish dragged Artie from bow to stern 2 or 3 times before we got to see what it was. He had managed to get the hook into the corner of the mouth of about a 6-foot class sand tiger shark. He fought it a few more moments and we got it to the side of the boat where we were able to get the photo for him, and we popped the hook out without landing it. Artie and his thunder rod would have been the only people on the boat that could have landed that fish. Only a few minutes later I found him half sitting, half laying on the bench inside the cabin. He looked absolutely exhausted. I looked at him, and all he could mutter out of his mouth was, "That fish kicked my ass." That is kind of the joy of saltwater fishing. So Artie carried that rod around for 15 years, and after 15 years of seeing Artie fish with a monster rod on the boat, it finally paid off. I hope you folks all enjoyed that. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this, hit the share button to share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way we can grow. Tight lines and good fishing.